Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mental Health Awakening. This is a mini series with 3 different episodes. This episode is the first one that is for you guys listening and watching. It is World Mental Health Day, and it's called Mental Health Awakening Specials, which is pretty cool. And everyone here today has been on the podcast. So I think some of you were on Mental Health Awakening, the first series, and some of you on the second series. So some of you know each other, some of you don't. So we're going to all do our introductions and then we'll get on talking about mental health. So Angela, I'll let you do your introduction and then you can do yours.
Hello. I'm Angela T. Jackson, licensed professional counselor in the state of Tennessee, the USA, partnering with the UK. Glad to be here for this special. Always wanting to share the most on mental health. It's not just an event. It's not just a special day of recognition, but it is a lifestyle. It is a life. So we're glad to be here.
Yeah. So Connell, if you wouldn't mind doing your introduction.
It's always having to be the first one, always. But anyway, without any further ado, let's get into it. I'm Connell Scholar. I'm a mental health advocate. I also like going to the gym, and I've done podcasting before, so I do have my own podcast, and based on mental health. So yeah, that's pretty much me.
Yeah. Welcome back for the I don't know how many times you've been on now. I've been a lot. Yeah. So Dr. Dangerfield.
Greetings. I am Dr. Lucretia Dangerfield. I am a licensed professional counselor with the Mental Health Service Provider designee here in the state of Tennessee. I think this is my 3rd time of being on the Mental Health Awakening, and as always, it is great to share information around mental health and what it looks like with leaders, and then also making that connection of mind, body, and spirit. And we all know that we're also on the continuum of mental health wherever we are, because we all have mental health.
We definitely do. Thank you. Sellittia, you mind doing your introduction?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sellittia Johnson, and I'm in the state of Tennessee. I am currently a DHS program supervisor, better known as a regional supervisor for vocational rehabilitation.
Thank you. And lastly, Charlotte, if you mind doing your introduction.
I'm so glad that was last. I'm Charlotte Crawford, and I have previously been on the series before talking about my personal experiences with OCD and autism. And I'm happy to be back and to meet everybody.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. Because everyone here has been on the podcast somewhere or another. And all of you can say you've been on more than once now. So the first question I'll get us started with, and it can go in any order. This is not school, so you don't have to put your hand up. I don't want to be a teacher here, but because this is a special on mental health, World Mental Health Day, do you think we should be having these days for particular things like mental health? Do you think that's needed, or do you think there should be these kind of days to go around the year for certain days?
Absolutely. I think it not only raises awareness, but it also reminds people how important mental health is, because there are still a lot of people out there that mental health is still quite taboo, but actually forcing people to recognize mental health, you can start to put information out there and sort of open people up to what mental health really is and why it's so important.
Yeah, mental health it's very important, isn't it? Otherwise we wouldn't be all here. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for mental health. And I think everyone on here shared your own journey on the certain episodes that you've been on, and it's like a I always say these kind of things are like, like maths. Well, it's not maths, but like a lesson. Like they have so many different things. So maths, you have algebra. which we won't talk about algebra because we'll be here all day. But you know what I mean. So you have lots of different points. It's almost like a circle bracket where you have all these different things about mental health. But yeah, so does any of you think that mental health is done? Do you think there needs to be lots more, I don't know, in schools, lots more education for mental health? Do you think?
I don't think you can say mental health is ever done, because the science and mental health is ever evolving, and we're all challenging and interrupting the stigma around mental health in particular, because yes, as Charlotte said before, it can be a very taboo subject, and until we improve the conversation surrounding mental health, I think there is always going to be a select few that are going to not really want to talk about it. They shy away from it because it's something that they feel that they shouldn't talk about. And it's like, oh, why should we talk about feelings? I'm a burden on someone. Why should I do that? Why should I talk about my feelings to someone? But I'll say this, I'd rather someone cry on my shoulder than attend their funeral. So it's so important that we have mental health awareness or mental health acceptance days, because it really signifies the importance of why we should continue the conversation around mental health.
Yeah.
I agree with Connell. I agree with you 100%. Also with Charlotte, whether it's Mental Health Awareness Day, whether it's the week, whether it's the month, I don't think there can ever be enough, because we go through seasons in our lives, and the way that things change, it impacts our mental health along the way. So I would say that the conversations are necessary even more so within the different populations, whether it's the children, whether it's the aging adults. From the children to the aging adults, we all need it. It needs to be an ongoing awareness. And I think, and I feel comfortable saying that we all continue to show up and advocate because of that necessity. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. What are your thoughts in terms of where mental health awareness is needed within the community?
Yeah, I think it definitely does to be needed, because there's so much to talk about it. Like, I wasn't that fussed about it when I say younger, because I just thought it was one of those things. Like, it's hard to understand actually mental health, because you don't actually know. Like, if you're young, perhaps you will think mental health is to do. It's hard because you'll think it's something wrong, like you'll think perhaps you'll think maybe something's wrong with you. But the fact is, we all have mental health. So I do definitely think lots needs to be done still, because people don't know, and everyone has the different ways to deal with certain stuff. And yeah, to answer your question, I definitely do think lots still needs to be done. But that's about anything, isn't it? Like, not just mental health, lots of different things. Like, you're gonna always say that needs to be done differently, or that needs to be easier. There's always gonna be times. So it's a never stopping thing, is it?
I think it's interesting that you said about when you was younger, it wasn't something that really sort of bothered you, but and it was the same for me, really. I've suffered with mental health really since I was really, really young, possibly around the age of 3. But I always thought, oh, but is it just something that's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? But had they sort of introduced at sort of schools about how people's feelings can be, because I suffer with not really knowing how I'm feeling. I think alexithymia. So I find it really difficult to actually put into words how I'm feeling. But had there been more conversations about that in schools, sort of starting young, it would have been so much easier to actually understand that this is normal. Everyone has different mental health problems. It doesn't make you abnormal to have mental health problems. It just means that your mind is working differently. And I think as someone that talks a lot about my mental health to people, the amount of times I've seen on the internet people saying, oh, I hate it when people trauma dump. But actually, trauma dumping isn't trauma dumping at all. It is sharing your experiences and actually being able to speak to someone who will let you be heard is the most important thing. And that's why I think it's important as well to make people change their mindset from, oh, someone's trauma dumping on me, to this person's reaching out. This is actually a really positive thing that they're actually reaching out.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like when we're younger, it's different. Like life is different. Like 20 odd years ago, like it wasn't really thought about, was it? Like the mental health side of things. And I think I totally agree. Like for the next generation, hopefully schools do things differently, because I know I recently, well, I say recently, maybe about 2 months ago now, I was invited to do a talk or get an interview for a talk, and this was autism, and this was a primary school, but it was a mainstream primary school, a public primary school. So it wasn't set for those with maybe additional needs. It was just, you had people there, and they have something called an autism hub. So you would have an autism hub, which wasn't heard about years ago, but now they are more common. So you feel those that they could make mental health hubs, like they have that for autism. Why not have a mental health hub dotted around different schools to start with, and then maybe edge to a college, even to a university, even, and then the workplace. So start small, and then you get big, because mental health doesn't just affect the youth, does it? It affects older, let's say. There's no age limit to how it affects someone. It could affect, I don't know, an 80-year-old. So it's different. But yeah, I completely understand what you're saying, Charlotte, because it wasn't heard of when we're younger.
Well, as I was listening to all of you speak about the whole importance around mental health awareness and bringing it to the forefront, is if we make it a more of a way of living, like an everyday conversation that, even with families having conversations with kids as they grow, as they 1 or 2 years old, helping them to understand that we all have mental health, is the and seeing that it's on a continuum where if you don't take care of your mental health, then it can move into a mental illness. But if you're teaching young kids about how to express their feelings, how to that it's okay if you're feeling anxious or worried, or if you're having sadness. I think where the cutoff, where the stifling becomes when they're negated. Like if your emotions are told, oh, what you're feeling is not real, that makes you question, am I really experiencing it? So being able to have conversations, making it a daily, everyday living conversation of how to practice taking care of your mental health and as a part of wellness. The same way we have kids, adults talk about physical health, physical ailments. If your stomach hurts, it may not be because you ate something. It may be because you're anxious or nervous. So asking those questions, like when you're, especially with a little kid or with a teenager and adult, like when you're feeling this ache in your stomach, what is it tied to? Is it that you ate too much? Are you hungry? Or is it because you're feeling a little anxious or worried or sad about something? So having those types of conversations opens up the door for exploration. And then the same way we wouldn't stop having physical health days, we should not most definitely stop having awareness days around mental health. Most definitely not.
It's interesting you said about, having them stomach pains. When I was a child, I used to have really, really bad stomach pains from the age of 2. And as I was getting older, it was just getting worse and worse. And it turned out that they were called stomach migraines. And it was because I was so stressed that it was becoming a physical condition. But I didn't know how to express to people I'm really stressed. And that's how it came out. But that ability to say, oh, my stomach hurts, is what helped me get the help that I need. But then if it wasn't coming out in that way, I don't know what I would have done, because I didn't know how to express, something's worrying me. But because people don't always take children seriously.
Yeah, just to say as well, with Charlotte's point, I think the reason that people don't tend to take children seriously is because they think they don't know any better, and they just brush them off. But actually, when a child is, or even an adult, but I'll use a child as an example since we're on that topic, when a child is saying that they have stomach pains, like Dr. Dangerfield said, if they're having like stomach pains, or it could be because sign of nerves or anxiety or anything like that. And I think the reason that children or adults take mental health days off of school or work, or if you're a teenager or whatever, college or university, those mental health days do need to be normalized. It's a form of self-care, it's a form of advocacy, it's a form of healing, it's a form of knowing when you step back and take a break, because otherwise you don't want to overwhelm yourself. And sometimes it is okay to be selfish and put yourself first, because if you overwhelm yourself with too much, and therefore in turn, like you will sort of you'll get those stomach pains, or just feeling that stress and anxiety. And that's why taking that step back at times is so important, because that's what we need for our mental health and physical health to recover.
I like that you said taking a step back, Connell, and that in connection with assessing what is happening in a person's life, what's happening in our own lives at the moment. It could be anyone at any point. And a very real example is with my own children. If I notice that all of a sudden they're sick and they were not before, of course, I consider the physical, but I also realistically ask myself, was there an exam today? Was there a new activity that maybe my child would prefer to avoid? Is there a struggle taking place? Are you having a hard time, or, fights, conflicts, anything like that? So focusing on the total person helps tie all of that together, what's happening in my life that's affecting me from the inside out. So yeah, I like the idea, as you said, of taking that step back and doing that self evaluation, figuring out what's happening around me that's affecting how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, and am I trying to mask it and hide it? Now my body's responding, whether I respond favorably or not.
So can you guys hear me now? So listen, I am really in the midst of an anxiety attack, and I think this is a good time. I can admit that, because we're talking about mental health, right? And I'm really starting to feel a heightened sense of something, because I'm having all this difficulty with technology. But I said that to say the things that we consider is small, because it's technology. To me, it's small. But just think, someone who really has some kind of something serious going on, this right here could have really threw their entire rest of their weekend off. And that's the stuff we need to be, like Miss Angela said, more aware of, because we don't know what causes someone to start having issues. And I just wanted to point that out, because I'm really sitting over here feeling some kind of way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I imagine how annoying it is as well. But with the day, like I don't think there is actually a bank holiday, is it? Whenever Mental Health Day is, and you'd think, I think this year is on a Tuesday, or today is a Tuesday, as other people are listening, as it's Mental Health Day. But do you guys think there should be? Do you think there should be like a bank holiday as it's mental health, like maybe self-care? Do you think that that should be the thing, like that we should have a day off? I don't know, of work and stuff.
That is definitely something to advocate for.
Oh,
I
because
think
what were you gonna say, Angela?
I was going to say, I think they leave it up to us to take it, and sometimes it's a fight.
And that I'm glad you said that, Mason, because if you think about, people tend to take off for mental health days, whether they are given permission to when they work, or they just give themselves permission to take it. So if we had a national holiday around mental health where everyone got that day off and it was recognized more on a federal level for us here in the US, that it's like, okay, today we're saying everyone do something to take care of your mental health. That would probably be a major awareness push. People would be like, oh, I could tend to myself today. So I guess we have to give them permission to tend to themselves if they're listening to this podcast, that take some time off today to tend to your mental health if you have not taken it.
I wish we had more areas, and I was trying to mention this earlier, where we could really walk in and receive mental health care for that day. I think that even though we're talking about it more and we have the numbers, really sending someone to a location for mental health service that day, even with community care, they can't. They can have insurance, they can walk into some of the best mental health facilities, and they're saying, well, if you're not at the point of suicide, we can see you in 3 months. And I wish we had better solutions to help people who need something immediately.
I agree. I also think, you know, I wish that there was more sort of resources that you could contact. I mean, there are places that I've tried to call, but you're on a waiting list, and if you're in like a mental health crisis, it's a lot more difficult to stay calm when you're being told to wait. And you know, even sometimes leaving the house can be difficult. So if you could have someone come to you for the day just to help you with getting yourself together, because sometimes it's just the little things that can be really difficult. So if there was the service where someone could just come with you for the day, even if it was just to sit with you for company, I feel that that would be a really helpful resource for people, especially if you can't leave the house.
I 100% agree with what you were saying, Charlotte, because with the mental health waiting list, I don't know what it's like in the US, but I know over here the waiting list to get seen or get counseling or therapy is absolutely horrendous. Waiting lists are up to a year, 18 months for anyone to even get seen, which is just shows the epidemic and the crisis we're having in mental health, where yes, we're talking about it, and yes, the conversation is improving, but however, on the flip side, people still aren't being seen or catered to, and it's almost like a thing of like Sellittia said, if you're suicidal, they're like, yeah, we'll see then. But if you're someone that's just someone that's quite suffering quite badly, and just wants that outlet or someone to be with or someone to talk to, they just, or like shall I say, said, stay calm. And sometimes it's almost like patronizing, especially when you're having a really rough day as it is, and you should have someone telling you that. How you react to that is another thing. It's just absolutely horrendous. Like I say, just the waiting lists and how much of a change and how much we really need to advocate for that change, because otherwise, you know, people aren't going to get seen, and and sadly, I'll say this, people might find another way out, and that's something that we don't want. We want to support people, young and old, to be able to achieve whatever they want to achieve, and to feel valued and recognized and appreciated, because that's the most important thing, I think, in regards to mental health.
Does someone from America or the States want to talk about your side of things? Like, how is it over there? Like the waiting list? What's it like over there?
We are here in the States. It's the waiting list, or the wait time is not as long, but it's long enough. It depends on, for here, it's driven by insurance. If you have insurance, it's a possibility that you can get in quicker. They're limited, but we're still in that fight of accessibility and affordability for all. And it's not, mental health services here are not seen as the same as physical health, where you may have more doctors, more physicians, but we're getting to a point now is that we're still under populated in our profession, where it's not enough people that are in the field that are coming into the field to be able to serve the number of people that are experiencing mental illness and mental health issues. So no, our wait time may not be 12 months, but like Sellittia said, 3 months, that's a lot. Like anytime that's more than a 24-hour time, that's too much for anyone to have to wait if they're having a mental health challenge, and being able to find someone. There's certain services that we have here, like 988 is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week number and resource, but if they don't have enough people to man the lines, or enough people when they routed out into wherever a person lives, then they're still hitting up against that wall of not being able to have proper services.
I agree with Dr. Dangerfield. There's so many guidelines, there's so many opportunities, yet it's a bittersweet place, because you have professionals and advocates like us who are getting their education, pursuing the helping field, and then there's a break in the bridge where people are showing up, they're advocating for mental health services, but the access is still not either available for one reason or another. It may be, like Connell said in the beginning, it may be the stigma that's still there. It may be population. It might be lack of insurance, not knowing where to turn for the resources. And as you said, the waiting list may be present. And then, you've got different therapists for different situations. So it may be one person who's focusing on a certain area or a certain niche is overloaded within the area they're providing services for. So there's, like I said, there's that bittersweet spot where there's services being provided, yet there's still more work to be done. Yeah.
Yeah, because like we say, we can talk about it as much as we want, can't we? We can talk about it here all day, or for the hours, however time we're speaking for. But really, unless someone like acts and we actually go to the people really high up in who work within the mental health, because we can't do anything. And like, I know talking can help, but unless people actually make changes, which there does need to be lots of changes, as we all know, there are so much that needs to change. But like we say, it's improved. But like Connell says, like Charlotte says, over here in the UK, it's terrible. It's terrible how you have to wait near enough a year, and like Dr. Dangerfield says, 24 hours is long enough to wait. And I feel like, especially going back to youth, young, if you're in a school and you have problems, I think it's really hard to talk to a teacher. So say there's a teacher, there's maybe a counsellor or a therapist in your school. That is going to be really hard to talk to them, because you know them. Everyone knows them. Because I know, especially the school me and Connell went there, there was a therapist there, an acting therapist there, and everyone knows who that is. And you're not going to really act normal to them because they know who you are, they know everyone in the school. So I feel like in a school setting, you should get someone that no one knows. Get someone that no one knows, and it's easier. Well, it's not. It may be hard because they're a stranger, but if you, they're not going to be. It's not going to be like when you're with your friends. It's all going to be like fun and games. But yeah, I think that certain things, even little things like that. But yeah, if people don't act, that's the thing.
You know, Mason, I will say this for the US, that's one area where I can say I see improvement as it relates to therapists, licensed psychologists being assigned in the school system. So what happens is there may be mental health agencies who contract, right? I'm not sure if they actually contract with the Board of Education, but somehow there's a partnership between a mental health agency where they send a licensed therapist separate from the school. They set up an office for them to be able to support maybe the school counselor or the students or the case manager. So there are different roles that are played to support students in the school. So that part, I can genuinely say that that has been taking place for a little while, and it seems to be improving even more so. It's not the administrative school counselor who's also seeing the kids for mental health. It's an actual professional, and there are more opportunities there because they'll send a permission slip home, and maybe the child does not have permission to be seen individually, but now they provide groups. So there's an additional class that might be independent living or social connections, where a therapist comes in and talks about regulating behavior on a daily basis, taking the break, using the physical ed or the recess during the day. Maybe when they go outside, take that time to breathe, take that time to be mindful, take that time to stretch. So that is one area that is improving. It's a little bit, it seems like there may be more access with the younger ones now. And since teletherapy, where you can, be in a setting that looks like this, since we had to have school this way, it's been more available. And I can appreciate that, still having younger kids in school.
Yeah, I think that's good. I do think that's good to have. I know school I went to didn't do that, but I don't know if other schools in the UK are, because it is a little while ago since I was at school. Yeah.
I think one of the things I'll say as well with having a therapist in school that no one really knows, I think it would be a brilliant idea. I think it should be in every school, because it's great having a therapist in a way in a school that someone can go to, but not every child wants to go to someone that they already know, and the whole school knows, our staff members know, and how do they know that confidentiality won't be breached? I mean, okay, yeah, understandably, if they're expressing like really concerning thoughts, then yes, obviously action would have to be taken. But what I'm saying is that if a child or whoever or a teenager in school like expresses something and they just go telling the other staff members in the staff room, then that just breaches, confidentiality. If that child finds out, then what's the point? And I'll say this as well. When I was in school, I spoke. I actually had an art therapist. Combining therapy with art, and Mason will know who she is. She was absolutely brilliant. Like, she was so kind, so warm, so caring, and she was just overall brilliant. Miss Rowland, really helped me through year 10 and year 11, and I do not think that I would have got through that without her, to be truthful with you. Talking to her every week, really helped me when I was going through a dark time in my life, and having that outlet and that someone that I could talk to and someone who understands me, that was a real turning point in my life. And that was when I realized that I could open up and be expressive. And I think it is very important that we advocate having, that therapist in every school, that counselor, even from someone that isn't necessarily employed by the school, but does like freelance, for example, or whatever. Either way, something has got to change.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that person that Connell's speaking to is lovely, because she was very good, because she would actually she would take you out of class, wouldn't she? And she would actually talk to you privately. And everyone loved her, I think, as well. So she was brilliant. Because I know when I left, I was in her class for a year, and then I wanted to say certain, like, because we had our one-to-one meetings as well, and I think it was the time I was diagnosed with Crohn's, and I went to her quite a lot of the time as well, and then I moved to a different year, and then I was like, I want to still talk to you, and then she was saying that the next teacher, like the assistant helper, Miss Springle, her name was. Connell will know who she is, and at first I wasn't keen. I wanted to go to Miss Rowland, and then Miss Springles, I was lovely. Retired now though. But yeah, they were great. But I do think, so people like that, they could take them on board, if that as a role. So for instance, they could say that they could be a therapist if they wanted to. If lots of people are going to them, and if lots of people are speaking to them, but definitely lots does still need to be overlooked, like we say about the rules, because there's so much. And as you probably know, in schools, a lot of teachers will talk to each other in private at lunch times, and you don't know what they're saying. So that's one of the reasons why definitely someone that doesn't work at a particular school does need more to happen. But yeah, still lots to do.
I will say, what you're saying is the feeling of a lot of people. They're concerned that their deepest, darkest secrets will be shared with other people who know that therapist, or with other, maybe their peers that also see the same person. But a licensed therapist is legally bound to confidentiality, right? If you were to get a therapist who was, and I'm just going to say this really relaxed, who's chatting it up about your information in the break room, you can report that person to the board. There are certain, as I said, legal and ethical boundaries that we have to maintain. Otherwise, that puts our license in jeopardy. And we're clear with clients. We do not discuss your information. We do not breach that confidentiality unless, right? And so with that unless, there are clear stipulations, unless there's a threat of harm, unless you're threatening to harm someone else, unless there is a risk, and if you're a risk to yourself, right? So there's just certain stipulations that would be made clear in the beginning. Otherwise, might be a nice person, might be a smiling face, but yeah, you could report that person. Anyone who would share or break confidentiality, or who does not abide by that governing body. That's what the board is. The person who issues, the entity that issues the licenses. We are required legally to agree to those levels of confidentiality. And if that person does not, you can report to the board any grievance that you have. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think it should be like that, shouldn't it? Like, it's better to have licensed ones than just ones that are teachers, but like might not even be teachers, because I know the actual one that we're not going to mention names, but the school me and Connell went to, the actual therapist was not. I don't think even they were a licensed. I'm not sure, but I don't think they were. But at the same time, you like you say, that person, you want someone different, and someone that is licensed. But the more licensed ones we have, like you say, the more, I guess, professional they are. Because you have to keep that professionalism. Like, say you have, I don't know, you don't have a professional one, it's almost like they're your mate, like that kind of banter between them. But because I remember once I was sent to the therapist because of an accusation. Well, it wasn't an accusation. Like, a member of a school member said that I was there, and the confidentiality was broken because I asked the so-called therapist, who told you about the situation, or who told you, and they actually told me who the student was. So really, that's broken. They've broken that confidential before it's even begun. So even that is broken. And you don't do anything because they work at the school. So it's a hard one. But like you say, lots does need to still be improved. But it's a different topic, ain't we? Because I don't think any of us have. We know there's therapists here, but we haven't really actually had a proper conversation about it. So I think it's good we did, because we know the differences between UK and US. Yeah. So guys, before we finish, I'm gonna give each of you a chance to say anything. Just to finish up, if you wanna say any last words about mental health, as it's Mental Health Day, or you just wanna final farewell. I don't know. But I'm gonna do it. I haven't done this before, but I'm gonna go a bit different. So I'm gonna start with Dr. Dangerfield.
But what I would just like to share is that with World Mental Health Day, they each year it comes up with a theme and a topic. And the one for this year is mental health is a universal human right. And I want everyone to remember that we all have mental health, and it's our human right to be able to have the availability of services, the availability of licensed individuals to be able to serve us, and just the availability to be able to take care of ourselves, whether it's needing to take time off, or being able to just be, I like to say, selfish about taking care of yourself and asking for what you need and being able to receive that. So not shying away from it, but speaking out brings more awareness, and being able to tell your journey and your story.
Yeah. I completely agree. I completely agree what you're saying about universal human right. I don't know. I love that word, universal. Just reminds me of Disneyland. But yeah, thanks, Dr. Dangerfield. But like I said, everyone's laughing now. But it does, doesn't it? It's Universal Studios. So I'm gonna be a bit different here. I'm gonna go to you, Angela. I'm gonna go to you now.
So I would like to say to the viewers and the listeners that we are here, we are present because there is hope. I want to take this time to invite everyone to the Jackson Impact Mental Health Hub. That's a private group on Facebook where we seek to even improve the resources and the community that's being built. But it's a private place where you can ask questions about mental health care, resources, whether it's the US or the UK or wherever you may be. So there's information on different topics. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from all of the members to find out what information in terms of mental health is most beneficial for you. There will be different support groups or lives or different videos that have already been recorded, and some features from this series, Mental Health Awakening, where you may hear people talk about real life issues, real circumstances, real struggles, and real overcoming as it relates to anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, PTSD, grief and loss. So all of these things, all of these different resources and questions, that it may spark conversation and then in turn give you the answers that you need. So if you go to Facebook and search the Jackson Impact Mental Health Hub and request to join that private group.
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, to anyone listening and watching, go follow those instructions, or Angela, you send me the link and I'll attach it to the episode. So next up is Sellittia.
Okay, as I work on the vocational side of the impacts of disability or mental health, I encourage everyone, if you're looking for a career, but you are having some issues with your mental health, physical health, contact your local agency for Department, Human Services, Vocational Rehabilitation, or Human Resources, or any vocational rehabilitation agency, and let us try to help you navigate you having a successful career or academic path. But also encouraging the viewers to be transparent and honest about your struggles. And you find somebody you can communicate that with. For us ourselves as people who want to help others, just making sure, like it was mentioned earlier, that we notice when things are different with someone and the different signs, so we can jump in and offer them help and support, or lead them to where they can get help and support.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Sellittia, for sharing that. So next up, it's a hard one, isn't it? First of all, one of you was last, one of you started, so I'm going to go with Charlotte.
Yes, so I think I've had a lot of therapy through the years, starting in my teens, and since going through all of that, I think one thing that I have come to learn is that you have to be selfish so that you can be selfless. You can't help other people until you first help yourself, because you haven't got the energy to do that. So when you start to look after yourself, and actually put your mental health first, you're then more able to help those around you, and you're more willing to, and it feels better to once you're in a good state, because otherwise it's like a candle, and sorry, can't remember what it's called, but you're burning at both ends basically, and you're not going to ever be able to have the energy to help and advocate for anybody unless you help yourself. So I think for me it's be selfish, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's really important to be selfish.
Yes, it is definitely important to be selfish, because I don't know, if you want to go on holiday, you go on holiday. I don't know. If you
Need a break, take a break. I think that's one thing that I used to struggle with, especially when it came to work. I used to think, oh, I need to achieve this, I need to do this, it's my responsibility. But work's always going to be there whether I take the day off or not. So I can just have a break, and then I can come back to it once I've got the energy. And even with work, one thing I would always encourage is let your employers know about your mental health struggles. If your employer cannot accept that, they aren't the employer for you, because you're literally just going to be at a place that's just going to cause you misery, and you don't need that.
Yeah, yeah, you need somewhere that people understand you for you.
Definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there, Charlotte, because I think everyone does. We're all nodding. Connell.
Yes. One thing I'll say for Mental Health Day is, like I said earlier, taking that time to step back, pause and reflect, allow yourself to recollect everything, and allow yourself to, calm down and get away from the rigors that is life. Because if you overwhelm yourself too much, and I found that when I've had counselling and therapy throughout the years, is that being kind to yourself and getting away from the rustle and bustle that is life, because life can be full on, it can overtake us, it can, swallow you up and spit you out. But ultimately, it's recognizing and realizing that it is okay to take that step back, have that self-care day, book that holiday, do whatever makes you happy, is what I'm going to say here.
Yeah, that's a good way to finish. If whatever makes you happy, do it. Because we all have different hobbies here, I think. So we might even have similar hobbies. Who knows? But I know one of our hobbies is mental health. So there we go. But to anyone listening and watching, we hope you enjoy it. This World Mental Health Day special episode. And we hope you have we hope you're having a nice day, or are going to have a nice day, depending on what time it is for you. Because I know all of those are here, UK at the same time, but America's a bit earlier. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming on today. And I hope you have a nice evening, nice rest of your day, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, cheers.